What's happening, fandoms?
Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here,
we react to music videos and shows.
Today we're continuing on our series of Easter egg breakdowns and details from the Legend of Vox Machina provided to us by Will from the Pixelus. If you guys aren't already on to the Pixelus, check them out at the Pixelus Podcast on YouTube or on pretty much all the big podcast providers. Thank you so much, Will, for allowing us to check these out. We're excited. We've already finished the entire season 2, but we still want to catch up on all of these breakdowns because we get more details here, and so can you. You can check them out with us, or you can go check them out with Will at the Pixelus. I highly recommend them. Let's dive into it.
You don't recommend us?
Well, I also recommend us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelus. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk about
episode
7 of The Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. But before we dive in, let me give the patented spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the original campaign this show is based on, aspects of this breakdown could spoil little moments for you. That being said, if I ever dive into ultra spoiler territory, I will throw up a threat level midnight symbol. If you don't want to know, just mute while that symbol's on the screen. Other than that, shout out to everybody that came to our watch party last night. It was a blast, as always. I'm really looking forward to watching the final set of 3 episodes with you guys. If you haven't had a chance to make it to a watch party yet, but that interests you, definitely check out our Discord link in the description box below. That's where we have the watch parties, and that's just where we talk all, Pixelus content, Critical Role, in this case. Other than that, y'all, super special shout out to Andrew1927 for the super thanks comment.
Nice.
Thank you so much for the support, Andrew. It really blows me away, and I really appreciate it. And I'm glad you found the show as well, man. I'm glad you're part of the Critter community and now the Pixelus community as well. It's good to have you. You can never leave. Alrighty, y'all, we open up in the Fey Realm.
Luck Dragon.
Actually on this creature that I think bears a striking resemblance to Falkor from the Never-Ending Story.
Oh,
now,
yes.
intended Easter egg or
That's what I
just more
thought too.
Coincidence, I'm not sure, but I wanted to include it. Next up, we get this bird, this cute little bird that just gets torn apart by these plants. And
yes.
I think there's a couple things here. First of all, the pattern and colorization on the bird reminds me a lot of Dagon, which was Matt and Marisha's pet for many, many years. Dagon did unfortunately pass away, so maybe this isn't an Easter egg considering this bird gets torn apart, and I don't think that they would be giving an homage to their beloved pet only to have this happen. But the colors are very similar.
Yeah.
Also, this whole sequence could be a reference to this meme from this streamer playing The Last of Us back in the day. I'll include the clip. They're very similar, but it's also just kind of a funny concept.
Yeah, I've seen this
specifically referencing this, but
the rabbit.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh.
Okay, next up we've got this shot of this monster that looks and acts like a fidget spinner. And this is a reference to Travis Willingham basically always needing something to fidget with. He actually has a fidget spinner at the table at all times these days. And
that's why.
Recently posted a TikTok actually that you can see his fidget spinner in. So I'll pop that up on the screen. And also in this shot,
he has
this grass.
Severe ADHD stuff going on.
This grass was in the original campaign, but there was a bit of an extended encounter with it there. Keyleth says something that actually upsets the grass, and it turns red and kind of gets ominous. And Vox Machina has to kind of sing and interpretive dance their way to appease the grass in order to keep moving on. So we don't get that in the show, but we kind of get the spirit of it in this next scene. Percy
the Awoken Grove.
Just, think positive thoughts, and, this glade will allow you through. It won't bother you. And quick note on Percy. I love that, he's so happy and confident in his knowledge of the Feywild and is leading the group, being like, I read so many books. Like, don't worry, I got this.
So enthusiastic.
A couple of things. First off, Percy had the highest intelligence score of anyone in Vox Machina, so he was the go-to when they needed to kind of, figure out something that they weren't familiar with. But also, book smarts don't always translate to street smarts, and Percy's a bit out of his depth. Just because he read about it in books doesn't mean he actually knows what's going on.
Yep.
So I liked that kind of whole aspect to this episode.
Yeah.
But back to the glade. you know, it's letting everyone through until we get to Vax.
Emo boy
Which
Vax.
The slime monster later also attacks Vax, and we'll talk more about that encounter when it happens, but this is a good time to just talk about how the Feywild as a whole seems to be kind of against him. And there's a few different scenes where we see he sees his reflection and it becomes, you know, the zombie version of him. He then sees the zombie version of himself again in the slime monster, but then that quickly turns to the Matron of Raven's face. And I think what this is kind of getting at, and it's basically said as much later in the episode, but is that the Feywild is just kind of vehemently against his presence, rather the Matron of Raven's presence here, because she is the god of death. And in a lot of ways, the Feywild is kind of the antithesis of that. It is kind of the realm of overflowing and abundant life.
Yeah.
And in the D&D lore, which obviously the show is kind of, you know, moving away from, so I'm not saying they're one-to-one, but in the D&D lore, you know, the Matron of Ravens is highly associated with the Shadowfell, which is another realm of his existence. And that realm is the antithesis of the Feywild.
Right.
So it just kind of makes sense that everything here would kind of be just starkly opposed to Vax as the champion of the Matron of Ravens. So I just thought that was cool. And, you know, once again, he's just having to come to grips with what he is, or what he at least is becoming. Alrighty, now let's pick up with the other half of Vox Machina, which, if you recall, in my last episode breakdown, I brought up how in the original campaign, they did not split up. So I was really interested to see what they did with this. And now having seen these 3 episodes, I think this change makes a lot of sense narratively.
Yeah, totally.
So we pick up with them where we left off with the Grog, Pike, Craven Edge debacle. Now, one detail that I like in this first shot of Grog kind of gathering to his feet is that we can see Pike in the reflection of Craven Edge, kind of foreshadowing that it's still focused on her and wants to drink that blood, which
nice detail
does in the very next scene.
I did not see that.
I saw that.
Herself here. Then we have just this moment of Grog kind of potentially succumbing to Craven Edge's will, but ultimately fighting against it and breaking the sword. Now, this was really cool, especially just the visual of all that
Right,
blood
the
pouring out of the sword when he
explosion.
breaks it. And then, of course, we have Grog in this now depleted prior Steve Rogers form.
That's true.
And, you know, the rest of the episodes kind of deal with that a little bit more. But for right now, this is very different from what happened in the campaign. In the campaign, you know, he felt terrible about impaling Pike, and, you know, everyone kind of confronts him about it. And they're like, you need to get rid of this thing. And so Grog does kind of sever his tie with Craven Edge, if you will. And he doesn't destroy it. They don't break it in half. They actually banish it to another plane of existence. So I really liked the change here with him physically destroying it.
Yeah, this makes
But
it a
when
closed
they kind
book.
of separate him from it, the price it takes from him is his life. Grog dies. Now,
Wow.
I see why they changed it here, because I don't think they want to just keep having members of Vox Machina die every episode, because
Yeah.
it kind of like lessens the weight of the deaths. So I think they're going to kind of make these sort of changes here and there. But in the campaign, they are able to successfully revive him. But there is still like this curse element to the blade. But they are successfully able to remove it fully with, I believe, like a remove curse or a greater restoration or something to that effect.
Yeah, I totally agree. The consequences of him being sapped of all his, you know, skills and motor abilities and stuff is way harsher than simply dying and coming back to life right away. Like, it doesn't translate as well. So narratively, this was a way smarter way for them to do it. And it paid off so well in the ultimate way that this story progresses all the way through the end. It was so much more rewarding for those things later. Yeah.
But for the show, love this change of him breaking it and it just sapping all of his strength, because it plays directly into his arc this season of where do you find your strength. So I feel like those just kind of go hand in hand. And I've seen the next 2 episodes, so I know what happens and where it's going. But I really like where they're setting up to this payoff even more with him figuring out where his strength is really coming from. One last thing I wanted to touch on with Craven Edge, now that we are done with it in the show, was what happens when it gets full. I, spoke briefly on this in a previous breakdown, talking about how Travis was foregoing sleep in order to, give Craven Edge more and more blood in order to see what happens when it gets full. Now, we've seen this in the show in season 1 with Silas, the sword grew, but also in this episode. We have the sword here, and then it drinks the blood and gets longer and sharper and more menacing. So now that we're done with it completely and there's no risk of spoilers, I'm going to post up the stats of the item from the actual D&D campaign.
Oh, wow.
So just give the video a pause if you want to read it, but thought I would include this. Also in this scene, we get this great moment where Pike and Scanlan are trying to figure out where they are, but clearly they are not in the Feywild with their friends, so
Right.
the spell has not worked in some way. And Scanlan says,
Keyleth, you really need to learn your spells.
which is just great because this is a meta reference, because a lot of the times in the first campaign, Marisha would be, looking through her character sheet, looking at all of her spells, because druids have so many spells in addition to all their various forms that they can take. It's just a lot. So Marisha would often be, trying to decide what she was doing on any given turn, or trying to remember what a certain spell did, or maybe what spells she even had access to, or maybe even what spells she prepared on a given day. Druids are just a lot, man. It's nothing against Keyleth, and other players have gone on to play druids or other complicated classes, and they are guilty of this too. But in campaign 1, it was often Keyleth, so this was just a little, again, meta reference that made me laugh. All right, next up, we head back to the Feywild where we meet Garmelie for the first time. Now, Garmelie is voiced by Billy Boyd, and need I even say more? What a freaking legend. And we are now officially at 2 out of 4 of the Hobbits. If you don't recall, Dominic Monaghan played Archibald Desney in season 1. So I'm just hoping that maybe we could collect all the Hobbits by the end of the show.
That's
Just
true.
A great casting, and it was so fun to hear his voice pop up. Now, in the campaign, they found Garmelie in this exact same way. Vex finds him spying on them and drawing lewd, crude images in his notebook. Now, I'm not familiar enough, honestly, with YouTube and its ways, so I don't know if I could get away with sharing the image in this video, so I'm going to err on the side of caution and not. But a small little Easter egg is the fact that he drew Vax and Keyleth together. Little hint at their relationship. But also there's some Easter eggs with the journal itself. Now, the colors are very reminiscent of a certain someone's colors.
Oh,
Let's just say
yeah.
Garmelie for now. And, if you've seen all 3 episodes, there's a little bit more to Garmelie than meets the eye, but I will talk more about that once we reach that moment in a later episode. But also on the journal, the image on the front looks like a gate. And once again, if you know, you know. Now, I won't say more than that.
I don't.
For now. But
Yep.
for
Not
any
yet.
spoiler
If you
demons,
know,
I'll
you
explain
know.
A little bit more during that moment in the later episode. But really cool details to see. Okay, next, let's talk about this encounter that they have in the Feywild against this
Little
monster
blob.
that once again is after Vax because it vehemently disagrees with his existence, let's say. And I think this is a mishmash of a few potential D&D monsters. And again, it's probably just them having fun with throwing different things at this group, right? But I think it's kind of a mishmash of gelatinous cube / ochre jelly. And who knows? But it's a cool encounter, and I wanted to point out a couple of things. First, we have Keyleth using her wild shape once again, this time turning into a jackalope.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know she
instantly
turned.
reverts her form. And I wanted to use this as an excuse to talk a little bit more about how wild shape works in D&D. When druids transform, they get a whole new health total, a whole new health pool to work with. And once that health total is reduced to 0, they are forced back into their normal form. She is forced back into her Keyleth half-elven form. And this happens basically instantly because a little jackalope animal like this probably only
Has no
like
health.
1 hit point, meaning if it gets hit at all, once, anywhere, she's going to poof back into Keyleth. So I just thought it was funny to kind of see that on full display. And also, the spores, the drug trip. This was awesome.
Hilarious.
The visuals were
Yeah.
so cool. I bet the team had a great time working with this one.
Little
Couple little
heart
points
there.
here is first and foremost, we get Vex looking at Percy with all the hearts emanating out. This is kind of setting up not only the relationship that's been set up across both seasons so far, but in particular, a moment that's going to be happening in the next episode, which I'll touch more on there just in case anyone is watching this without having seen that yet. Also, we get this moment with Vex and all of these eyes start to circle her. Now, I'm threat level midnighting here.
Yep.
Boom, 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 boom. Now, when I first saw these eyes, this is campaign 2, by the way, campaign 2 spoilers. When I first saw all these eyes, I was like, oh my God, are there 9 eyes? And so I paused and counted, and I'm like, dang it, there's only 8. So I hit resume, and then,
there was 9.
So I think this has to be a little bit of a nod to the 9 eyes of Lucian, or the Somnovum, rather, from campaign 2. Now, I don't think it like literally is those eyes, but I think this is just, a fun moment to the viewers of that. But also, like I said, there are 8 eyes originally, and the 9th eye only appears when Vex closes her eyes and she is kind of opening her mind's eye. So I think that's like a separate kind of Easter egg, not tied to the Somnovum eyes, but just, close your eyes, man, open your 3rd eye. So just really cool.
I like it.
And also we get
Ship it.
Trinket, played by Cheech Marin. Iconic. Just iconic. This whole season's cast has just been amazing. But I thought that was a hilarious casting. And in the campaign, Vex actually literally speaks to Trinket while they're in the Feywild. She has Keyleth teach her the spell Speak with Animals, and then she speaks to Trinket for the first time. So I just thought it was fun how they kind of included that moment, in a different way via this drug trip. Alrighty, y'all, one last detail in this encounter was how they dispatched the monster. And 1, this was just cool. But 2, we got to see diplomacy in action for the first time. Now, diplomacy is this glove, and in the campaign, Percy just tinkered and created this glove. But here in the show, he has made this by repairing his own hand. And it does lightning damage, just like it did in the campaign. Now, Percy kind of had to crank this and was really struggling with getting it to work earlier in the episode. And I think that might be a nod to the fact that it had a chance to catastrophically fail in the campaign. So maybe we'll even see it backfire or worse at some point later in the show. Alrighty, one last thing before we check back in with our Tal'Dorei crew, and that is this deuce that Garmelie leaves for the group here. Now, I think this could be a reference to Scanlan in Campaign 1, because in Campaign 1, he had this magical potion made that when he drank it, then when he relieved himself, when he dropped to number 2, he could then kind of spy on people through that. So, he would do his business in one area, and then much later, sometimes vast distances away, he could then spy on that area because of it. So that's not to say that I think Garmelie is spying on them through his, but it's just the first thing my mind jumped to when I saw that scene. So, maybe it's nothing more than a poop joke, but I figured I'd include it just in case.
Might as well be an Easter egg.
Right.
Crew, and before we dive into that awesome song in montage, let me knock out a couple of the other details really quick. We've got some more groundwork being laid for Pike and Scanlan's relationship and how that's going to develop with this moment where Scanlan is taking care of Grog and Pike notices and really likes this side of him. But then Scanlan notices her, noticing him, and
ruins
the walls
it.
come right back up. So I think this is a nice development, and it also plays into Scanlan's character arc just on his own as well, learning to kind of be his truest, sincere form to those around him and, being accepted for that. Also, during this montage, we get this moment where they use Agar's hand as a counterweight in this pulley system. And I hope we keep seeing this hand pop up in various ways because this is hilarious and I love this recurring bit. Other than that, there's this moment where Scanlan is lifting up Grog with his Scanlan's hand spell, and he himself is climbing up a mountain, but he kind of stumbles a bit. And because of that, he loses his concentration, and the hand spell that's holding Grog dissipates. Now, I thought this was fun because this is representative of a mechanic in D&D, literally called concentration. Certain spells are concentration spells, which means if you take damage while you're doing it, or if you cast another spell that is concentration, the first one goes away, or at least it has a chance to go away in the case of taking damage. And so, because Scanlan was distracted and fell, he lost concentration. And so his spell ended. Bigby's hand, the spell this is based on in the campaign, is indeed a concentration spell. And they've kind of showcased this a few times in the show so far, but still wanted to point it out. Okay, on to the song. This is amazing. This is on so many levels. But the song Making My Way that Sam and Ashley are singing here during this montage is, and actually Laura Bailey sings a different version in the credits. So if you missed that, if you skipped the credits and just went straight to the next episode, definitely go back because it is kind of a whole different take on the song, and it's very good.
Also, we now know that if you check out the Twitch VODs of their watch along for these episodes,
they sang that
at
song.
the very end. We get a Sam and Ashley version and also a Laura version. They perform their versions live at the very end of that watch along.
That was so cool.
It was very cool. Laura's especially was so amazing. But at the time that he did these, I don't think that those had happened yet.
Yeah.
So there's another way to check them out.
But so in Critical Role, across all the campaigns at this point, there's this recurring bit where anytime anyone says making my way, or even just slight derivations on that exact phrase, other people in the cast will start to sing this song. Making my way downtown, the Vanessa Carlton song. So that's just been a thing for forever and will probably continue to be a thing. But the really clever bit about this is that, they obviously don't have the IP to Vanessa Carlton's song. And I don't think they've ever gotten in trouble for just, singing 3 words on stream. But now they're kind of guarded from that because they are technically just singing their own song.
That's great.
So now I guess they could even make Making My Way merch if they wanted to. So this was just awesome. And of course, I'm going to include clips from the original campaign. So I hope you enjoy.
Start making my way out, but also a little bit more towards the walking fast, 30 feet to 1,000.
So inspirational.
Making your way.
Making my way to the shore.
All right.
It's like they're going to a wedding here.
Trying to grab her chain.
They are.
Whose wedding?
Just like grab it.
Start making my way back.
Okay, so movement 5-10.
Making my way back down.
45. That's the rest of your movement.
To the big giant. Okay, I'm gonna make my way down.
Making my way down.
Making my way down, tower.
You move up to the large eagle that is.
I make my way.
Make my way out of the. That's on me for not knowing that was coming.
You slowly make your way on towards the nearest bit. There it is.
It's a sad one. It's a slow one. He said slowly make your way.
Making my way to where I thought Ford was.
Where you think Ford is?
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at his drink container.
Yeah. Old
You
man.
crack up.
Making my way to
Old man.
So you walk up.
Alrighty, making our way back to the dragons to see what they're up to. And we have this Skype call between Thordak and Umbrasyl.
Skype
now,
call.
there's many spells and many items in D&D that enable long-distance communication like this. And I know I'm beating a dead horse with how many times I've said this, but in the show, they are not explicitly trying to convey one specific D&D item. They're moving away from that, if anything. But, since we get this stone imagery, I think this could be inspired by the sending stones from D&D, which are basically like
Walkie-talkies.
version of walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Moving on from here, we go back to the Feywild, and there's this one line from Garmelie that he says the word traveler. And for those that know,
Garmelie was merely the traveler.
I'm just going to wait until the moment in the next episode, but that was a fun little tongue-in-cheek nod for sure. And he shows them to this city, Singorn, which is where Vax and Vex are from, which I briefly mentioned in an earlier breakdown. It teleported away from the prime material plane and into the Feywild in order to protect itself once the dragons attacked. So that's why it's just, you know, here plopped in the middle of the Fae. Cool detail here is these stones you can see at the top of these columns across the city. These are what are known as threshold crests, and they are magical, powerful items that actually are what enabled the entire city to teleport. And in the original campaign, the dealings with Garmelie were a bit different. I don't know if it's worth it to get in the weeds on it here, but he didn't just, you know, volunteer to help them and follow them around. They struck a deal with him in the original campaign where he would guide them to where they were trying to go in order to get Fenthras. And in return, they had to acquire a couple of things for him. One of the things they needed to acquire was a piece of one of these threshold crests. Alrighty, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. If you notice any Easter eggs or details that I missed, definitely let me know down in the comments. I am going to get to work starting on episode 8 and 9's breakdowns now. Those will probably be out in the next couple of days. If you enjoy this content and you want to see more of this content, the best way you can help me out is to share this video. And of course, you know, like, comment, subscribe if you really want to. But other than that, y'all, as is tradition, I'm going to send you off with a little clip. So until next time.
Nice.
This feels targeted. This is deeply targeted.
This is personal. I have a complaint I'd like to file.
Making our way to this. That's torturous.
This whole video was amazing.
The vowels are just so...
We should do it. We should do that video.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Will.
Yeah.
That was another great episode.
It is. I really enjoyed it.
I think my favorite things my favorite secrets about that episode were all of the various things that point to Campaign 2. The eyes, the Garmelie pieces, the Traveler, all of that stuff was my favorite. What did you see that you liked?
Oh, when he shows all the cast for the, you know, making my way, and also making my way at that part, and at the end too. Yeah.
At this point, like in episodes that happen today, they don't like sing it. It's literally just a they like mutter that. It's an evolved joke, and they all do it instantly. Like Matt will say, "You make your way," and they go, "Make my way," and then it's automatic almost. It's hilarious. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for following us along. The Pixelists are amazing content creators and are very good at what they're doing with the Easter egg breakdowns. Will spends a lot of time working on these, and it would hardly be fair of you to watch them and not reward him with a sub or a like or something. So head on over to their channel. We'll put a link in the description, and do just that. And we really appreciate you guys.
Well, thank you again for your love and support to our channel. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you, and see you in the next video.